What happens when betrayal is confessed not in whispers, but with pride? I told my husband that my ex had proposed to me, and worse, that I had said yes. I thought he would beg, argue, maybe even fight for me, but instead, his quiet response shattered everything I thought I controlled. My name is Seraphine Vale. I am 31 years old, and I thought honesty would make me look brave. One night in our kitchen, while Daniel was pouring tea, I told him that Deacon, my ex, had proposed to me. I added, almost proudly, that I had said yes. I wanted to see Daniel react, to finally show some fire, to fight for me the way he never did. Instead, he set down his cup without a sound, his face calm but unreadable. I rushed to explain it wasn't real, that I only said yes to feel something, to test him, to make sure he still cared. He asked why I would humiliate him like that, and I laughed, saying he was too serious, that he never understood my need for excitement. I thought he would argue, raise his voice, maybe even beg me not to go through with it. But he didn't. He only looked at me for a long moment, then walked out of the kitchen without a word. That silence cut deeper than anger, but I told myself it meant nothing. I believed I was still in control, that he would forgive me as always. I had no idea what his silence was preparing. The night I confessed, the kitchen felt smaller than usual. I stood near the counter, twisting my ring as if I were already showing off Deacon's proposal, though there was no ring from him. Daniel was quiet, stirring his tea, and I blurted it out. I told him Deacon had asked me to marry him, and I told him I had said yes. I watched his face, waiting for shock, maybe rage, but there was nothing. He set his spoon down carefully, his eyes steady, and asked why I would say such a thing. I laughed nervously, saying I only wanted to see if he still cared, that it was just a test, harmless, something he shouldn't take so seriously. He asked if humiliating him was my idea of harmless. I rolled my eyes and told him he never understood me, that Deacon knew how to make me feel alive, while he was always calm and dull. He said quietly that marriage was not a stage for games. I snapped back that if he had fought for me more, I wouldn't have needed to test him. He didn't raise his voice, didn't even argue. He simply looked at me, long and silent, then stood and left the room. I shouted after him that he was proving my point, that he was weak. But the echo of my words hung heavy in the empty kitchen. Later, when I called my mother to vent, she told me I was right to want more, that Daniel would come around. My brother James, however, said I was destroying something solid for a thrill. I told myself James was jealous, that he didn't understand, but inside I felt unsettled. Daniel's silence wasn't sulking. It was something colder, and I didn't yet grasp its weight. 2 days later, I agreed to meet Deacon at a restaurant. He was bold, as always, leaning back in his chair with that confident grin. He ordered champagne before I even sat down, raising his glass to our new beginning. I laughed loudly, letting people nearby hear, enjoying the stares. He slipped his arm along the back of my chair, close enough to make it clear what we were celebrating. A couple at the next table whispered, and I felt a strange thrill at being seen. Deacon asked if Daniel was furious yet. I told him Daniel hadn't said a word, that he was sulking in silence as usual. Deacon laughed and said Daniel was too weak to stop me, too weak to fight for me. I smiled, pretending I agreed, but a part of me wished Daniel would burst through the door and drag me away. Instead, I got a message on my phone from Cassie, a friend who had seen the photo Deacon posted of me, laughing with the champagne. She asked if I was humiliating Daniel on purpose. I told her she didn't understand, that it was just harmless fun. Later that evening, I stopped by my mother's house. Clara smiled proudly, saying I was finally choosing happiness, that Daniel would learn he had to chase me if he wanted to keep me. My brother James happened to be there, and he was less forgiving. He asked me straight out if I enjoyed destroying my husband's dignity. I told him Daniel should have fought harder. James shook his head and said silence from a man like Daniel meant more than I realized. His words unsettled me, but I brushed them off. I told myself people were overreacting. Yet the whispers were spreading faster than I could control. That night, Daniel came home after the children were asleep. I sat on the couch with the TV on, pretending not to care, but my heart beat faster when he entered. He didn't greet me, didn't ask about my day. He simply went upstairs to check on Ella and Noah. I followed him, annoyed by his silence, and asked if he had seen the photo Deacon posted. He said yes, his voice steady. I demanded to know if he was finally angry. He said anger was wasted when respect was already gone. His calmness stung more than yelling ever could. I snapped that respect was boring. That passion mattered more. He looked at me and said, our children deserved parents who respected each other, because they could already feel the tension. His words made me falter, but I covered it with a laugh, accusing him of twisting everything to make himself the victim. He didn't answer. He kissed the children goodnight, then returned downstairs. I followed, still trying to provoke him, mocking his quiet nature and saying Deacon was a real man who knew how to take charge. He said nothing, only picked up his bag. When he stepped out of the room, I noticed a folder left on the table. Curiosity got the better of me. Inside were printed screenshots of my messages, the photo of Deacon's proposal toast, and even comments from neighbors who had seen us together. My chest tightened as I flipped through the pages. This wasn't sulking, this was evidence. I shoved everything back into the folder before he returned, pretending I hadn't seen it. But the sight of those organized pages haunted me. Daniel's silence wasn't weakness, it was strategy, and it was building into something I wasn't ready for. At Ella's school event the following week, I showed up wearing the ring Deacon had given me. I thought it would prove I was desired, that people would envy me. Instead, I caught the whispers. Parents pulling each other aside, some shaking their heads. Daniel stood across the room with the children, calm and steady, while I tried to laugh too loudly with other mothers. My brother James approached me, his face tight. He asked if I had any idea how much shame I was bringing on Daniel. I told him gossip didn't matter, that people were just jealous. He said quietly that Daniel was already preparing, and that soon I would see what silence meant. Later, at home, I found a lawyer's card tucked into Daniel's jacket pocket. On the back were notes about custody. My hands trembled, but I told myself it was just a bluff. The truth struck when a man in a suit walked into my workplace and asked for me by name. He handed me an envelope in front of everyone. My co-workers tried not to stare, but I saw their glances. Inside were divorce papers, neatly bound with screenshots of Deacon's proposal photo, my own words, and even teacher notes about Ella asking why her parents didn't sit together. That evening, I confronted Daniel, shouting that he was humiliating me. He said calmly I had done it to myself. Then he added the court dates were set. His silence had become final. In court, I tried to explain it was only a test, that I never meant to leave. The judge didn't smile. Daniel's lawyer presented the photos, my own confession, and witness notes. The divorce was granted, custody secured. Daniel signed calmly and walked out, leaving me shattered in silence. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and turn on the bell so you don't miss the next story. Write in the comments from which city you are watching.